The world sang, and Kale was deaf to its music. He stood at the periphery of the grand atrium, a cavernous space where 1,000 people stood in perfect silence, their faces a canvas of subtle, shared expressions. A ripple of serene joy passed through them, a collective sigh without sound. Kale felt nothing but the cold press of the railing against his palms. He was an island in a sea of connected consciousness, a man who thought in words when the world had evolved to think in feelings. His apartment was a haven of quiet, a place where the only noise was the scratch of his pen on real paper, a banned, archaic habit. He was labeling his emotions in a notebook, a daily exercise in self-awareness. Frustration, sharp, acidic. Loneliness, a hollow, cold weight. He couldn't broadcast these feelings into the nexus, the global telepathic network, nor could he receive the comforting warmth of another soul. He was a linguist, a clinical, sterile term for a social disability. He was a broken thing in a perfected world. The knock on his door was a shock. No one used physical sound. He opened it to find a woman whose presence was a void in the nexus. She was as silent as he was. "Kale," she said, her voice a rough, unused instrument. "My name is Ilara. We need your particular affliction." She took him to a hidden sector, a place of concrete and wire, untouched by the nexus's ethereal glow. Her group, the Veritas, believed the nexus was decaying. They showed him the data, a contagion of pure, irrational fear they called the phantom glitch. It would spike in a sector, causing mass panic, suicides, and a primal terror that left psychic scars. It was spreading, and no one within the emotion-driven network could diagnose it. They could only feel it, and thus become it. "You are immune, Kale," Ilara said, her words deliberate. "You don't feel the storm. You can study the clouds. We need you to find the source." His first foray into a glitch-ridden sector was a descent into a silent, visual hell. People huddled in corners, their eyes wide, their bodies trembling. A man stared at his own hands as if they were alien claws. A woman repeatedly slammed her head against a padded wall, a desperate, physical response to an internal phantom. Kale felt nothing of their terror, only a profound, analytical pity. He recorded everything in his notebook, not with feelings, but with observations. Subject A: exhibits avoidance behavior, pupils dilated. Subject B: self-harm as externalization of internal stimulus. The emotion-based citizens were helpless. To them, the fear was a weather system, an undeniable reality. They could not question it, only endure it. But Kale, with his cursed syntax, could ask why. He spent days in the Veritas archives, cross-referencing the glitch patterns. He didn't search for emotional signatures, he looked for structure, for rhythm, for a pattern that behaved less like a feeling and more like a sentence. And he found it. "It's not a glitch," he said, his voice trembling with a discovery that felt like power. He stood before Ilara and her council, his notes spread out like a map. "It's a command." They stared, uncomprehending. "Emotion is the medium, but the source has syntax," Kale explained, the words flowing now, beautiful and lethal. "It's a recursive loop. A feeling of fear, followed by a meta-feeling of this fear is real and justified, followed by a command to spread this truth. It's not an illness, it's a propaganda campaign. Someone is using the language of emotion to speak a lie." He had found the author. The source wasn't a malfunctioning server or a psychic virus. It was a person, a high-level architect of the Nexus known as Atheron, a man celebrated for his pure, powerful emotional broadcasts. Atheron had discovered that pure emotion could be weaponized with logical structure, turning feeling into a perfect, self-justifying weapon. He was sowing chaos to justify seizing total control, to become the sole calming voice in the storm he himself was creating. The final confrontation took place in the Nexus core, a chamber pulsating with raw psychic energy. The air hummed with the weight of 1 billion feelings. Atheron stood there, a figure of serene power. "You are the Silent One," Atheron's voice bloomed in Kale's mind, a wave of condescending pity. "The Empty One. You cannot even comprehend what you seek to stop." Kale, for the first time, was grateful for his silence. Atheron's emotional barrage, waves of awe, of terror, of a desire to submit, slammed against the walls of his mind and found nothing to latch onto. They were arrows shot into a void. "I comprehend it perfectly," Kale said aloud, his words stark and solid against the formless pressure. "You're a rhetorician. You're using pathos without logos, without ethos. Your argument is flawed." Argument? The concept was alien, broadcast as confusion. This is truth. This is feeling. "No," Kale stated, stepping forward, his own mind crafting a response not of emotion, but of a complex syntactic structure. He couldn't send fear, but he could send a concept. He focused all his mental energy, pushing a single word-based packet into the Nexus, aimed not at Atheron, but at the network itself. It was a logical proof, a series of cascading questions. If the fear is real, where is the source? If the source is external, why does it propagate with internal logic? If the architect is the solution, who created the problem? It was a cognitive virus, a Trojan horse of pure reason delivered into a world of pure emotion. The Nexus shuddered. The monolithic wave of fear that Atheron was broadcasting fractured. For the first time, doubt entered the system. Doubt, the first child of language, the killer of unquestioned feeling. Atheron screamed, a raw psychic shriek of defeat. His control, built on the simplicity of emotion, was shattered by the complexity of a question. He collapsed as the network, confused and reeling, began to reject his corrupted signal. Kale stood panting in the sudden quiet. The glitch was gone. Weeks later, the world was different. He still couldn't feel the Nexus, but he was no longer an outcast. He was a guardian. He sat with Alara, watching a new generation learn both the Nexus and the old, word-based languages. "You saved them with the very thing they called a disability," Alara said. Kale looked out at the city, no longer gray to him, but filled with the potential for infinite stories. "They were trapped in a perpetual present of feeling," he said. "Language, syntax, it's a bridge across time. It lets you question the past and plan for a future. You can't build a future on a feeling. You can only build it on an idea." He was still silent in the world's song, but now he was the one writing the lyrics.